The university was first established in 1959 as VIN Teacher Training College. Over 60 years of foundation and development, it has become a multidisciplinary university. The mission of VIN University is to provide high-quality human resources through the pursuit of education and training at the national level of excellence, to deliver teacher training and continuing professional development, and to function as a leading research and technological transfer center in northern central Vietnam, as well as nationwide. The university always focuses on learners' success. VIN University's vision is to become a national key university and a member of the ASEAN's University Network. VIN University's general goal is to create a thriving academic environment where students' competencies and personalities grow, leading to their success. VIN University's core values are honesty, accountability, passion, creativity, and collaboration. VIN University's educational philosophy is defined by collaboration and creativity. The university is a member of the International CDIO Association and an associate member of the AUN-QA Quality Assurance Network. It was rated as a 4-star university according to the University Performance Metrics, UPM, standards in 2020. The university has a collaborative relationship with dozens of higher education institutions and international scientific organizations in Europe, Asia, North America, and Australia, and provides training, scientific research, and staff retraining. In recent years, the university has hosted many regional and international scientific conferences and established research groups with leading scientists. Every year, the university publishes hundreds of papers in domestic and international journals. In 2020, there were over 150 of VIN University's papers listed on the webpage of Science and Scopus. The university consistently ranked among the top universities in the nation for its efficient production of international publications. In recent years, VIN University has been equipped with modern facilities to meet the requirements of world integration training activities. With comprehensive achievements, the university, its component departments, and staff received many prestigious awards. Currently, the university is focusing on improving overall university operations, improving organizational structure, and preparing for the establishment of affiliated schools. This will transform VIN University into VIN Comprehensive University. Improving the quality of education using boldly innovative teaching methods to meet social needs, perfecting CDIO-based training programs, and accelerating the accreditation of training programs. Promoting achievements in scientific research and enhancing international cooperation through training, scientific research, and international publication. Shaping the school's management system according to ISO standards in order to modernize management and administration activities. Promoting applied research, technology, transfer, and startup activities among students. Welcome to VIN University.
Live from Hanoi and VIN University, it's the 7th Viet TESOL Convention. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Nguyen Hu Quet, Dr. Le Thuy Linh, the host of Viet TESOL Convention 2021.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, warmly welcome to Viet TESOL International Convention 2021.
Ladies and gentlemen, as far as we know, the Viet TESOL International Convention has become an annual event which brings together teachers, educators, and researchers in the field of English language education from Vietnam and all over the world to exchange ideas, to share experiences and the research results, as well as to enable the networking in the field. This year marks the 7th convention on the theme Rethinking Language Education in the COVID Era, which is hosted by VIN University in co-organization with the Viet TESOL Association and the National Foreign Languages Project of Vietnam under the sponsorship of the US Embassy in Hanoi.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the span of the past 2 years, the COVID-19 pandemic has radically changed the operating landscape of the global meetings, forcing innumerable events to make significant adjustments from physical settings to virtual or hybrid formats. And accordingly, there is no exception to VIC 2021. Originally scheduled to take place at Vinh University or in a hybrid mode, Viet TESOL International Convention 2021 was eventually shifted to 100% virtual platform due to the huge impact of COVID-19, making it a second time in a similar fashion to the first ever online VIC last year. Against this background, COVID-19 has opened up novel alternatives for teachers, educators, researchers to come up with signing ideas, exploration and discovery, sharing and diversifying moments about language education in response to unforeseen circumstances of the pandemic. It is evident in the huge turnout of the Viet TESOL International Convention 2021 online version with nearly 2,000 speakers and attendees.
Ladies and gentlemen, the convention is now taking place online at Viet TESOL website from the 22nd to the 24th of October, with 4 keynote speeches and 5 feature speeches, a series of oral presentations to be live streamed on the convention's website, as well as nearly interactive websites and workshops to be conducted via Zoom, and nearly hundreds of poster and pre-recorded presentations will be screened. Unlike the traditional physical conferences, the Viet TESOL International Convention 2021 will not stop when the event date is over. All the video recordings will remain accessible to all attendees for 30 days. We suppose this kind of extended post-event homework won't be a burden to you, but rather it is a rewarding experience for your persistent passion for the field of TESOL. Against all odds of the current circumstances, the passion that brings us together here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, our convention has been made possible thanks to the joint effort and dedicated work of so many people. We would like to take this chance to express our most sincere thanks to the organizers, reviewers, speakers, supporters, and teachers across Vietnam and even abroad for their valuable time and admirably persistent endeavors for VIC 2021 from day one till now. We especially would like to acknowledge the indispensable contribution to the technical team who enabled the shift from VIC 2021 from offline to online mode. Last but not least, let's show our deepest appreciation of the current support and the sponsorship of the U.S. mission to Vietnam, especially the Regional English Language Office, RELO Vietnam.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our great honor to introduce to you the guests of honors attending the opening ceremony of Viet TESOL International Convention 2021 this morning. From the Ministry of Education and Training, it's our great pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Nguyễn Hữu Độ, Deputy Minister, Ms. Nguyễn Thị Mai Hiếu, Director of the National Foreign Languages Project Management Board, Mr. Phạm Quốc Khánh, Deputy Director of the Quality Control Department, Mr. Tạ Ngọc Trí, Deputy Director of the Primary Education Department, Ms. Vũ Thị Tú Anh, Deputy Director of the Continuing Education Department, Mr. Nguyễn Tô Trung, Deputy Director of National Foreign Languages Project, Mr. Trần Trọng Hưng, Deputy Director of National Foreign Languages Project, along with the participants of the representatives from departments of Ministry of Education and Training, Vietnam. We also received the participation of different representatives coming from Primary Education Department, Secondary Education Department, Higher Education Department, Continuing Education Department, International Cooperation Department, and Teachers and Educational Managers Department.
From the Viet TESOL Association, it's our great pleasure to introduce Professor Dr. Nguyễn Hòa, President, Associate Professor Dr. Phan Văn Hòa, Vice President, Dr. Bảo Khâm, Viet TESOL Board Member, Mr. Nguyễn Ngọc Hùng, Viet TESOL Board Member, and members of Secretary Board. From Vinh University, the host of Viet TESOL International Convention 2021, it's our great honor to introduce Professor Dr. Nguyễn Huy Bằng, President, Dr. Trần Bá Tiến, Vice President, Dr. Nguyễn Thị Kim Anh, Dean of the Faculty of Foreign Languages, and the leaders of affiliated schools and deans of the faculties. From the U.S. mission to Vietnam, it's our great honor to introduce Mr. Gerald Frank, the regional English language officer, ZILO Vietnam. We are also delighted to see representatives from Peace Corps Vietnam in the light of virtual presence today. We'd also like to take this chance to demonstrate our deepest appreciation to the kind support of Platinum sponsor, the Regional English Language Office ZILO Vietnam and British Council Vietnam. Diamond sponsor, Pearson, Oxford University Press, Cambridge Assessment, and Gold sponsors, Cassin and McGraw University of Languages and International Studies, US, and Joy Education Group.
Especially attending the opening ceremony, we'd also like to introduce to you the featured speakers, the keynote speakers, and most importantly, over 1,500 non-speaker participants who are teachers, scholars, and educators from different schools, universities, and research institutes in Vietnam and many parts of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, welcome the Viet TESOL International Convention 2021.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the Viet TESOL International Convention 2021 is a joint effort of three organizers. The host of the convention, Vinh University, is one of the key institutions accredited for higher education quality in Vietnam, a member of International CDAO organization, and one of the key institutions in implementing the National Foreign Language Project of Vietnam. Over the past 60 years of build-up and development, Vinh University has trained millions of high-quality human resources, especially in teacher education, for the whole North Central region of Vietnam. With its mission to train high-quality human resources and to develop into a regional hub of teacher education and technology application and transfer, Vinh University has been striving to become a key national higher education institution and one of the ASEAN University Network with its persistent core values of honesty, accountability, passion, and creativity. Now, over the past year, lecturers of staff of Vinh University have been working so hard along with the other partners in preparation for today's event under the insightful leadership of the organizing committee. Now, it's our great honor to introduce and invite Professor Dr. Nguyễn Huy Bằng, President of Vinh University, to deliver his opening remarks.
Honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, as the conference chair, I take great pride in welcoming all the attendees of the International Viet TESOL Conference, which is co-hosted by Vinh University, Vietnam Association of English Language Teaching and Research, the U.S. Embassy in Vietnam, and the National Foreign Language Project. Vinh University has continuously encouraged its teaching faculty to develop innovative approaches that empower the learner for their future, and English language education has been one area where we have been contributing for many years. As president of Vinh University, I would like to warmly thank VTA for giving us opportunity to co-host this year's conference. I would also like to thank the organizing team for their effort and support. At the theme of this year's conference is rethinking English language education in the COVID era. I hope that in this conference we will deliberate on various issues that impact language teaching and learning during the crisis. Once again, I'm delighted to invite you to take part of this conference and to make the conference a great success. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Nguyễn Huy Bằng. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Over the past decade, the National Foreign Languages Project has been comprehensively implemented at all different levels of education in Vietnam. Notably, in 2017, under the approval of Prime Minister, the project's missions include changing foreign language learning and teaching methods in national education system, continuously implementing new foreign language programs in various institutions of all levels, and improving foreign language competency to meet the requirement of learning and working purposes. By 2025, the Ministry of Education and Training has served as a central actor in the course of the implementation and management of the project, with a principal role in National Foreign Languages Management Board that has been a significant co-organizer and the endorser of annual Viet-TESOL International Convention. And now, it's our great honor to introduce and welcome Dr. Nguyễn Hữu Độ, Deputy Minister of Education and Training, to deliver his welcome remark.
Xin chào các quý đại biểu, các vị khách quý và các thầy giáo cô giáo. Hôm nay, tôi rất vui mừng được đến tham dự và phát biểu tại lễ khai mạc này. Tôi rất hoan nghênh Ban Quản lý Đề án Ngoại ngữ Quốc gia, Văn phòng tiếng Anh khu vực thuộc Đại sứ quán Hoa Kỳ, Phân hội nghiên cứu và giảng dạy tiếng Anh và Trường Đại học Vinh đã phối hợp tổ chức hội thảo quốc tế Viet-TESOL năm 2021 với chủ đề Nhìn lại việc giảng dạy ngoại ngữ trong bối cảnh Covid-19 hôm nay. Như các quý đã biết, thế giới trong giai đoạn Covid đầy thách thức và khó khăn, nhưng cũng mở ra những cơ hội mới cho giáo viên, cho giảng viên, cho các em học sinh, sinh viên, cho cả các nhà giáo, các nhà cán bộ quản lý giáo dục. Trên tinh thần tạm dừng đến trường nhưng không ngừng việc học, trong 2 năm gần đây, Việt Nam đã liên tục tìm kiếm những giải pháp thay thế việc tổ chức dạy học truyền thống như là việc học trực tuyến, việc học qua truyền hình, được kết hợp giữa trực tiếp và trực tuyến để nhằm củng cố cũng như là duy trì nền nếp học tập và vượt qua những khó khăn trong giai đoạn khó khăn nhất của dịch bệnh. Trong bối cảnh khó khăn đó, chúng tôi hoan nghênh và đánh giá cao sự đồng hành của các thầy giáo, cô giáo trong những ngày tháng qua. Chúng tôi trân trọng nỗ lực của các thầy, các cô khi vượt qua những rào cản về thiết bị, về đường truyền, về cơ sở vật chất, về điều kiện dạy và học để cùng hỗ trợ, giúp đỡ các em, học sinh vượt qua giai đoạn dịch bệnh khó khăn này. Thưa các vị đại biểu, thưa các vị khách quý và các thầy giáo, cô giáo, trong nhiều năm qua, Hội thảo Viet-TESOL đã và đang là một trong những hoạt động thường niên được tổ chức tại Việt Nam, là diễn đàn chuyên môn có uy tín, nơi hội tụ các nhà chuyên môn, các chuyên gia, các thầy giáo, cô giáo và các em học sinh được giao lưu, được trao đổi những kết quả nghiên cứu, được trao đổi những ý tưởng, phương pháp và các nguồn học liệu liên quan đến công tác nghiên cứu giảng dạy học tập tiếng Anh. Tại hội thảo lần này, chúng tôi mong muốn sẽ tiếp tục được nghe các chuyên gia, các nhà khoa học, các thầy giáo, cô giáo thảo luận về những đề xuất, những ý tưởng về công tác đổi mới chương trình đào tạo, phương pháp giảng dạy, ứng dụng công nghệ trong giảng dạy tiếng Anh, nâng cao năng lực ngôn ngữ tiếng Anh cho người học các cấp, đặc biệt là trong bối cảnh dịch Covid diễn biến rất phức tạp. Dù hình thức tổ chức là trực tiếp hay trực tuyến, tôi tin rằng sự kiện vẫn sẽ làm tốt vai trò kết nối giáo viên, các nhà nghiên cứu, những người hoạt động trong lĩnh vực giáo dục trong và ngoài nước thuộc lĩnh vực nghiên cứu và giảng dạy tiếng Anh, hướng tới xây dựng và phát triển cộng đồng TESOL bền chặt, không chỉ ở trong nước mà vươn tầm ra cả khu vực và thế giới. Tại hội thảo năm nay, các quý vị sẽ có cơ hội để tiếp cận với nhiều quan điểm mới, đặc sắc trong việc dạy và học ngoại ngữ qua phiên báo cáo của các chuyên gia hàng đầu như giáo sư Rob Waring với chủ đề là mảnh ghép còn thiếu trong việc dạy học tiếng Anh, tiến sĩ Xavier với chủ đề là tạo tác động tích cực của thiết kế trong bối cảnh Việt Nam, tiến sĩ Mazzoli với chủ đề là đào tạo giáo viên ngoại ngữ, bài học từ Covid-19, giáo sư Ruth Haman về phương pháp tiếp cận đa phương thức với việc dạy và học song ngữ, duy trì văn hóa và sử dụng ngôn ngữ với chức năng hệ thống. Ngoài ra, các nội dung tập huấn, tiền hội thảo, các phiên khách mời, phiên báo cáo song song, các nội dung tập huấn trong hội thảo và hội chợ công nghệ đã được trình bày bởi các chuyên gia, các thầy giáo cô giáo trong và ngoài nước sẽ hứa hẹn là sẽ mang đến một sự kiện chuyên môn chất lượng, trực tiếp hoặc gián tiếp, mang lại những tác động tích cực tới công tác nghiên cứu, dạy học của các thầy các cô giáo trong cả nước và thế giới. Một hội thảo thành công không thể không nhắc đến đóng góp của các đơn vị, tổ chức, cá nhân. Tôi ghi nhận và cảm ơn các cơ quan, đơn vị, Ban Quản lý Đề án Ngoại ngữ Quốc gia, Văn phòng Tiếng Anh khu vực thuộc Đại sứ quán Hoa Kỳ, Phân hội Nghiên cứu và Giảng dạy tiếng Anh và Trường Đại học Vinh, đơn vị đăng cai tổ chức sự kiện năm nay. Tôi đặc biệt hoan nghênh sự tham gia đông đủ của gần 1.500 đại biểu, đại diện của các vụ cục của Bộ Giáo dục và Đào tạo, lãnh đạo và chuyên viên các sở giáo dục đào tạo của các trường đại học, các trường phổ thông công lập và tư thục trong cả nước, các giảng viên, giáo viên tiếng Anh, các chuyên gia trong nước và quốc tế đã tham dự và tích cực đóng góp công sức, trí tuệ cho thành công của hội thảo này. Cho phép tôi được thay mặt lãnh đạo Bộ Giáo dục và Đào tạo xin gửi lời cảm ơn đến các quý vị đại biểu đã dành thời gian tham dự hội thảo quốc tế Việt TESOL 2021. Chúc cho hội thảo của chúng ta với những kết quả ý nghĩa, thiết thực và đóng góp tích cực cho sự phát triển dạy và học tiếng Anh tại Việt Nam. Chúc các quý đại biểu, các thầy giáo, cô giáo sức khỏe, hạnh phúc và thành công. Xin trân trọng cảm ơn.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyễn Hữu Độ, Deputy Minister of MOETS, for your significant remarks. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the indispensable co-organizer for all Viet TESOL conventions and the organization that the convention bears its name from and share its birth year with it is Vietnamese Association for English Language Teaching and Research, or Viet TESOL Association, which is a non-profit socio-professional organization with the aims of creating a trusted platform for those who are interested in and committed to English language teaching and research. Headquartered in Hanoi, Vietnam, the Viet TESOL Association is committed to enhancing the quality of English language teaching in Vietnam through professional development, dissemination of teaching expertise, and research and information to support and transform practice, policy in ELT, and community service. The Viet TESOL Association is in its 7th year of operation and delivering its commitments. Viet TESOL International Convention 2021 is a part of those admirable efforts. Now, may I have the honor to invite Associate Professor Dr. Phan Văn Hoa, Vice President of Viet TESOL Association, to deliver his welcome remarks.
Dear Dr. Nguyễn Hữu Độ, Vice Minister, Ministry of Education and Training, Vietnam. Dear Professor Nguyễn Huy Bắn, President of the University of Vinh. Dear Mr. Gerald Frank, Director of RALO, U.S. Embassy, Hanoi. Dear Professor Nguyễn Hoa, President of Viet TESOL Association. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Viet TESOL Association, I would like to welcome all of our distinguished guests, delegates, and professionals from Vietnam and other parts of the world to this great convention. Despite difficulties and barriers by the COVID-19 pandemic, Viet TESOL Association, with its mission of connecting English language teachers, engaging community, supported by all of you, still organized the 2021 International Convention at Vinh University, Vietnam. Rethinking English language education in the COVID era is the theme of this convention. 4 keynote speakers, 8 featured speakers, 20 pre-convention workshop trainers, numerous presenters, hundreds of guests and participants are creating not only a source of a new academic energy, but also the new ways to propagate English education widely and effectively to every community. Sharing Viet TESOL's mission and Vinh University's great responsibility, our honored sponsors, including the Ministry of Education and Training 2020 Foreign Language Project, Regional English Language Office from U.S. Embassy, British Council Vietnam, Oxford University Press, ELT Division, Pearson Cambridge Assessment English, the University of Languages and International Studies, Hanoi, ACMICRO, Glassine, and others have made the convention well prepared for its goals. The 7th Viet TESOL International Convention 2021, hosted by Vinh University today, marks a dramatic journey to the theoretical and practical destination of language education. There will be papers presented by a wide range of others, including educators, administrators, researchers, lecturers, teachers, and teacher students. This clearly shows us that the values, the mission, and the tireless efforts of the Viet TESOL Association are deeply recognized. Although we have to conduct the event online this year due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the committed participants of you at this convention confirms that the event will continue to be organized next year. Taking this chance, I would like to introduce you to the University of Nha Trang, the host institution for the convention 2022. One more thing should be shared by you now. Viet TESOL Association, a newly born unit of Linguistics Association Vietnam, is increasing in its numbers. When established, VTA had only 50 members. Now VTA members, including individuals, institutions, and other units, are over 1,000. This firmly indicates that VTA is strongly developed in a right strategic direction. With this piece of good news, allow me to thank all of you for attending the International VTA Convention at the University of Vinh. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Phan Văn Hòa, Vice President of Viet TESOL Association. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this event would be impossible without further financial, academic, and especially the consistent technical support from our great sponsors. And now, may I have the honor to introduce and invite the representative of our sponsors, Mr. Gerald Frank, Director of the Regional English Language Office, RELO, the U.S. Mission to Vietnam, to say a few words. Please welcome.
Okay, Xin Chào. Good morning, everybody, and greetings from Hanoi. As you heard, my name is Jerry Frank. I'm the Regional English Language Officer at the U.S. Embassy in Hanoi, and my job is to promote English learning and teaching on behalf of the U.S. State Department all across Vietnam. And I also have regional responsibilities, and I also cover Cambodia and Laos. And I hope to get there very soon. I see some Cambodian participants here today, and once the pandemic is over. So I'd like to offer my sincere congratulations to Viet TESOL, Vinh University, and the National Foreign Languages Project for organizing yet another opportunity for us to come together, to learn, to share, and to build our connections. I'd like to give a special thanks to Dr. Do, Deputy Minister of Education and Training, Dr. Ma Hugh, Executive Director of the National Foreign Languages Project, Dr. Hua, President of Viet TESOL, and great remarks, Dr. Ho, Vice President, and Dr. Bong, Vice Vinh University President. Thank you very, very much. I'd also like to acknowledge our State Department sponsored speakers who worked at the pre-conference and will be presenting during this conference. Dr. Ruth Harmon, Crystal Bach, Summer Picciotto, Dr. Betsy Parrish, Dr. Murray Wong, Dr. Dong Ping Zhang, Dieter Brun. We're very lucky to have our Peace Corps Vietnam Director, Kate Becker, presenting at this conference. All of our American Virtual English Language Fellows working in Vietnam and presenting here. And very importantly, the organizing committee, all the volunteers, speakers, reviewers, sponsors, and participants that came together to make this conference a big success. And thank you so much for all the hard work that you did. I know you've been doing it for more than a year now. And I'd like to acknowledge my colleague, Zong Lee, who works at the embassy with me. He's the country director in charge of our English language programs, for all the things that he did behind the scenes. I can't believe it's been a year since I've been in Vietnam. I arrived last October, right when the Viet TESOL conference was happening virtually. So I joined from my quarantine hotel room, and it was a great introduction for me to get my first glimpse at the Vietnamese English language teaching and learning community. And I remember thinking while I was sitting in my hotel room, how impressed I was by the passion and dedication that I witnessed on behalf of all the organizers, all the participants, all the presenters. And I was really, really excited to begin my tour with that sort of kickoff. And I was also looking very much forward to this year's conference. I was thinking, well, next year, impossible. We'll all be meeting face to face. But unfortunately, here we are again in the pandemic, and we're meeting virtually. But I've already seen through the pre-conference what a great success that was, and I'm sure this one will be a success as well. And I think the silver lining, even though we're not able to meet in person, this virtual platform gives the opportunity for people who might not normally be able to attend the conference in person to join virtually. So I'm sure that this will be a great success. After I got out of quarantine last year, things in Vietnam looked pretty good. The pandemic seemed to be under control, and I was very, very lucky. I got to travel all around the country. I was in the north, I was in the south, I was in the middle. And the things that I saw in the virtual conference last year, the things that inspired me, the dedication, the professionalism, the enthusiasm for English language learning and teaching, I was very pleasantly surprised to see that was even more present in the classrooms that I visited around the country. The teachers here are very committed. The students are very enthusiastic to learn English as a way to improve their future chances and job prospects and being able to interact with the world. So I was very lucky that I got to travel around the country. And I even got to go to Vinh University. And I was very impressed by the campus. And I just feel so bad that we're not able to meet there. I know that our organizing partners at Vinh University are even more disappointed than we are that we aren't able to meet there in person. It's a beautiful campus, but I applaud you, Vinh University, for your flexibility, for your perseverance, for your adaptability in making this conference move forward this year. So once again, here we are, we're meeting virtually. But I've been very impressed by the resilience of the Vietnamese teaching community during the last year and a half. We were in the classroom, we're out of the classroom, we're having to transition, from face-to-face to online learning. And it hasn't been easy, and I applaud all of you. And when we face challenges like the ones we've had to face in the last year and a half, it's really good to know that we don't have to do it alone. And that's why I'm very thankful for Viet TESOL to organize this convention. You bring us all together. We talk about the problems that we face as a team. Everybody here is very passionately involved with teaching, learning, research. And Viet TESOL, you have done so much to bring us together, not only for this event, but for the year and a half during the pandemic, offering professional development opportunities for this community. You've been a leader in professionalizing our practice. And we're all grateful for the role that you play in bringing us together, providing a platform, giving us a place that we can face these challenges together. As the RELO, I'm very proud of our office's support for Viet TESOL. Our commitment is the same as yours. We try to support Vietnamese teachers. We give them opportunities to improve their teaching skills and experiences. And these opportunities are vital for our office to improve the people-to-people relationships between Vietnam and the United States and all the countries in our region. The U.S. Mission in Vietnam, in cooperation with the Ministry of Education, teachers associations, universities, schools, and English language teaching professionals continue to work to enhance English language teaching and teacher training, curriculum reform, and materials development in Vietnam. And we're very, very proud of the opportunities that we're able to give the teachers and students here. And we coordinate with universities around the country to bring English language fellows. We bring American specialists on special projects. And we try to work with you to identify need where we can support practices and development of English language programs here. We're also very proud of our English Access Micro Scholarship Program, an after-school program for underprivileged Vietnamese high school students. It's a 2-year program where we teach them practical English skills and help them to develop their soft skills as well. One thing I'd like to say is that we're very, very proud of some of the virtual programs that we've been able to offer over the last 1.5 years, and the Vietnamese learning community and our colleagues in Cambodia and Laos as well have been very active in participating in these programs. And when the pandemic hit, alumni of our programs were leaders. They knew how to teach online, they knew how to transition to online teaching platforms, and they were very generous in sharing what they knew and learned through our programs with their colleagues. So the people who are participating in our programs and the people who are in Viet TESOL are really the leaders of teaching English in the country and in the region, and you're shaping the practices of what we do in our classrooms. So again, I'd like to thank the organizing committee for the invitation to speak here. I also commend the Viet TESOL, Vinh University, the National Foreign Language Project, for all you do in shaping our community and supporting what we do. And I wish all of you a great conference. I hope that the conversations that you start today will continue, that it's just not this weekend, you're talking, you're networking, and I hope that you continue to grow professionally. And please don't forget us at the Regional English Language Office for anything that you need. We like to support individual learners, and we work with institutions as well. So happy conferencing, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Gerald Frank, the Regional English Language Officer, for the very nice and inspiring words and sharing. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to give you a good view of what is going to take place during the event days, we'd like to go through the main parts of the agenda. On day 1, firstly, we will have the first plenary session with a 15-minute keynote speech from 8:40 to 9:30 a.m. Then we will have 2 sessions of 30 minutes parallel oral presentations. One is from 9:35 to 10:05, and another is from 10:10 to 10:40. From 10:45 to 11:35 is the first feature session with 4 feature speeches. We will then have nearly 1 hour and 30 minutes for lunch break until 1 p.m. so that we can supplement enough energy for the afternoon sessions, which starts with the second plenary session from 1 p.m. to 1:50 p.m. Then the posters and pre-recorded presentations will take place from 1:55 p.m. to 2:25 p.m., followed by the second feature sessions until 3:20 p.m. From 3:25 p.m. to 4:25 p.m. will be the 60-minute workshops and 15 minutes workshops, followed by parallel oral presentations from 4:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. The final part of the main convention today will be the third plenary session from 5 p.m. to 5:55 p.m.
And on day 2, we are going to commence with the third plenary sessions from 8 a.m. to 8:50 a.m., which is followed by 60-minute workshops and teach fair, which promises to be very interesting, you know. And from 10 a.m. onwards will be 3 straight parallel oral presentations, 30 minutes for each. And at 11:45 a.m., we will come back for 30-minute closing ceremony. For more details, we invite you to click on the top program schedule on VIC 2021 website to see the convention schedule. And then you can choose the sections of your interest just by clicking Add to My Schedule button next to each section. The section you choose will be added automatically to your personal schedule on My Dashboard.
To attend or rewatch all the sessions you have chosen, first go to my dashboard, then click my schedule. You can see the list of chosen sessions. 5 minutes before starting time, just the check-in button next to each session will be available, and click on it. Then you can enter the relevant sessions or Zoom room. If you need any technical support during the dates, please don't hesitate to contact our help desk.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the opening ceremony has now come to an end. Thank you for your attendance. On behalf of the organizers, we wish our convention a great success. May we wish all of you a very productive academic discovery, fruitful network opportunities, compassionate idea exchange, and pleasant experience with Viet TESOL International Convention 2021.
So now it's time for us to kick off with the first plenary session. I think it's now almost 8:40 a.m. It's really absolutely perfect as a schedule. Again, I'm Hữu Quyết and Thùy Linh as the presentation moderators for the very first keynote speech. We are delighted to see all of you in the light of virtual presence during the opening ceremony, and especially here in this very first plenary session. We do hope all of you will be able to have some valuable knowledge and experience as a takeaways following the talk. Before the keynote speech, there are some considerations. In case you have any questions or concern about the presentation, please feel free to leave them in the comment section so that you can gather the question for easy response in the 5 or 10 minutes Q&A session. Okay, so now let's keep our eyes on the keynote speech entitled "The Missing Piece of the Puzzle," which provides a new perspective in vocabulary teaching and learning to enable exposure of students' written and spoken production. This interesting topic will be delivered by a very, very familiar and popular speaker to Vietnamese teachers, Professor Rob Waring from Notre Dame Seysin University in Koyama. Professor Rob Waring is an acknowledged expert in extensive reading and vocabulary acquisition. He has published over 80 articles and has given hundreds of lectures, plenaries, and featured speaker presentations in more than 30 countries. He now serves as an executive board member of the Extensive Reading Foundation, responsible for promotion of extensive reading globally. Please be noted that apart from this keynote speech, Professor Rob Waring will be presenting in 2 more sessions ahead in the upcoming workshops of the convention. Now, please warmly welcome Professor Rob Waring on air.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Good morning. Can you hear me fine? Can you hear me okay? Yes?
Yeah,
fine. Okay.
Clear.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much to the organizing committee, to all of my friends at Vinh University, Dr. Yan, Dr. Quinn, Dr. Tran, Dr. An, and all the other people. Also, I'd like to say thank you to the National Foreign Language Project, to the Vinh University president, to the Deputy Minister of Education, and all the other people who've been able to spend their time to put this together. I will be talking for about 40 minutes or so, and then we'll have a little bit of time for some questions. Please feel free to leave your questions in the chat box below. Feel free also to switch off your camera. You don't have to put your camera on, switch it off if you wish to save on maybe the possibility of dropping the Wi-Fi. Okay, so I'm going to start and let's go. So the talk today is called "The Missing Piece of the Puzzle." And I would hope that that title is making you think exactly what is he going to be talking about. Well, I'm going to be starting by just outlining what we're going to be doing. And we're going to start with looking at some of the main principles of learning a second language. We're going to look a little bit at what the theory of learning would be. How should we teach a language What are we actually doing? And then what's missing? That's the missing piece of the puzzle. So let's start by looking at some main principles of learning a second language. The first thing that we'll need to make sure we do is to provide lots of opportunities for the students to pay attention to the form, the grammar, the vocabulary and pronunciation. So this would probably happen through intentional learning, word lists, grammar book, intensive reading. We'd focus on spelling and pronunciation. We'd learn or teach the rules, learn the general tendencies within languages. And we want to check also that these rules have been learned. So we might give some tests and exercises. There's actually quite a lot to learn. So there's the grammar systems to learn. We need to master between 8,000 to 9,000 words if you wish to become an advanced level speaker of English. By that, I mean to be able to read a newspaper without a dictionary. So if you want to be advanced level, you'll need about 8,000 to 9,000 word families. Notice that words do have families. So the word use also has its inflected forms, uses, user, misused, useless, and utility are, of course, the derived forms. So you don't just learn the word use, you have to learn all of those various members. There are also multiple meaning senses here. There are 5 different meanings of bank, bank account, bank of a river, playing the banks, and so on and so on. All of these multiple meaning senses need to be mastered. Collocations is yet another hurdle for our learners. We say yellow car, we say blonde hair, we don't say blonde car, we don't say yellow hair. We say weak tea, but we don't say weak cheese. So all of these collocations need to be learned, and there are thousands of those. Multiple word units, traffic jam by and large, and sentence heads like do you mind if I, all of these have got to be learned. And on top of that, phrasal verbs, idioms, and metaphor. Now, I know you're familiar with this, but I just want to briefly go through this so you have some idea of what we're tackling. The next principle is we need to make sure students have time on task. This involves recycling the input. So if we look at knowledge, for example, and plot that against time, if today, for example, I were to teach 20 words to my students, how many of those words will be learned or remembered tomorrow? How many words would be remembered next week or next month if I didn't teach them again? One of the strongest findings that we have in educational psychology is we know that students forget. And this drop in retention, this forgetting curve is very, very well known. So one of our major jobs we have to do is to fight the forgetting curve. We have to make sure that that the students are meeting the words again and again and again and again. And we all forget. Everybody forgets. Do you remember the names of all of the students in your class 2 years ago? Can you remember 3 new English words that you've learned this week? So it's very, very difficult for us to keep these things from just 1 or 2 meetings. We have to recycle. And when we recycle it, we have to make sure that when our knowledge is high, we know it's going to drop. But before it drops too much, we need to study it again. But it's going to drop again. So we need to keep coming back and learn through what we call spaced repetition. Spaced repetition where the language comes back again and again and again. How many times do we need to master the word, need to meet the words? Well, between 8 to 20 meetings we need to have for each particular word in order for it to be learned. This implies we need massive exposure. So I mentioned before, if you want to be an advanced level speaker of English, then you're going to need to be doing 8,000 to 9,000 words. How much language do you need in order to get to that level? Somewhere around 5 million words of exposure will build that 8,000 to 9,000 word vocabulary. 5 million words. But the average course book has between 20 to 30,000 words in it. So there's a huge gap between the number of words in course books and the number of words students need to meet. The next principle is we need to make sure that students build their implicit knowledge. We need to develop that by developing connections. There's many types of connections. Students need to know how words and grammar fit together. They need to have this knowledge distributed across their brain in various parts of their memory. Students need to be aware of the nuances of meanings and associations between words and concepts. Familiar with, as I said, with collocation and colligation, multiple word sequences, discourse level awareness, so that are familiar with text not only at the word level, the sentence level, the paragraph level, a chapter level, but also at a whole text level and across disciplines. And on top of that, they need to be aware of various text types. Emails are not the same as academic papers, and they're not the same as newspapers or magazines. So all of this, this implicit knowledge, all of these connections need to be built. And we can see the need for these connections by just looking at an example of 4 different words. So if we take these 4 different words and put them into a sentence, the man caught the bus because he was late, gives us a mental image. It tells us he caught the bus because he was late. Usually he walks to work, but today he caught the bus because he was late. If we rearrange those words and put them in a different sentence, the man caught the bus, so he was late, provides a different mental image. Maybe now he's worried, he's on the bus, I should have taken my car. A very different image is instantiated. Or we can say the man caught the late bus. Again, has a very different mental image, which suggests that he's on his way home from maybe a night out or working at the company. So these mental images are created by meeting words and grammar in various contexts. And we need to build these connections, these associations in our students' heads. So if we look also at a simple word like I played, this also, depending on which words follow it, bring up completely different mental representations. So if we have I played football, is going to bring up this type of mental image. If we say I played the trumpet, we're going to have this one. If we say play a movie, again, has a very different set of images, associations built in our head. I played with her hair suggests romance in some way. I played with his mind suggests someone who's playing tricks on other people. I played cowboy at Halloween. I played a joke on him. I played the market. I played the field suggests that someone is cheating on their partner. And I played with my friends suggests that the people we're talking about are children. All of these associations are something that students need to build. From one simple word, we can change the way that mental representations happen. And it's critical that students meet lots of language so they can build these networks. Similarly, students need background information. So if we look at this animal here, which we call a platypus, which is from Australia, if we just see the sentence, the platypus did not want to move, she stayed by the eggs to protect them. So how do we understand that? Well, we need to understand whose eggs they are, and your understanding will change depending on what you know about platypuses. Is it the platypus is trying to protect the eggs? Or is it that platypus wants to keep these eggs because they're food? What is the meaning of this? And the difference is going to depend a lot on your understanding and your knowledge about platypuses. As you know, platypuses are one of the only 2 mammals that actually lay eggs. One of only 2. The other one is an echidna, which is also from Australia. So your understanding of the sentence depends a lot on your background knowledge. If the students don't have that background knowledge, they're going to misunderstand the sentence. So yet again, we need to make sure that students have built these connections so that they are able to process language properly. The next key concept we need to focus on is socializing the learning. We need to engage the emotions when we are teaching and learning languages. We have to contextualize the language in social and cultural contexts. We have to provide real language uses, or as much as we can. We need to have interactive cooperation, not just solo studying from books. And also co-created contexts. As we go through a conversation, I say something, you listen to me, you build off what I've said, I build off what you've said, you build off what I've said, and so on and so on. So we have co-created contexts. The 5th principle is that we need to make sure we have quality language use. So we have to have varied, meaningful contexts. We need to have engaging, non-random input. I'll come back to that later. We need to have context which stretch the student both linguistically and academically, mentally. We have to recycle the input. The words and grammar have got to come again and again and again to build on previous learning. So this is what we call scaffolding learning. And again, I will come back to that. So quality language use is also vital. We have to try to avoid contrived, unnatural conversations. This is very typical in many course books. Hello, how are you? Fine, thanks. And you? Great, thanks. It's not something I hear every day. This is not usually how we greet people, but it's a standard way we do so in course books. Similarly, if we have sentences like this in a course book, the president asked his secretary to make a copy of the letter to put in the files, or the secretary thought that making copies for her boss was not her job. These are contrived, unnatural sentences. It's very unlikely you will ever hear these in normal dialogue. It's much more likely to hear something like this. Would you make a copy of the letters to put in the file, please? Or would you, something like, I don't think it's my job to make copies for the boss. These are much more natural sentences. We need to move away from contrived, unnatural conversations. The sixth principle is to develop skills. We need to make sure all 4 skills are developed. We need to make sure they're integrated and there's skill transfer. So we ask students to read something, which then they can write about. Maybe they speak so that they are therefore listening. So we need to make sure there's skill transfer. We need to also ensure that they build fluency and automaticity, that they can produce words from their head when they need to very quickly. They're not stumbling to find words. Therefore, that implies we need to have speed reading and speed listening. And the situations that we have must mirror real life situations. The last one is autonomy. We have to make sure that students are focused on as the primary center of language education. We have to focus on learner-centeredness, but at the same time, respecting learner differences. The key point of autonomy is to make sure that students are independent of courses, teachers, and materials. We have to remember that our primary function as teachers is to fulfill the only single primary goal we have. The primary goal that we have is a teacher's job is to make herself unemployed. Your job as a teacher is to make sure that the students leave your class and don't need English anymore. They can function by themselves. So we need to make sure that everything we do is focused on making sure that students become independent learners, so that they don't need a dictionary and they can throw it away. So we need to make sure that the students are studying in their self-selected context. They can choose what to read, what to listen to, what to study about. We need to make sure they're meeting their own goals and their own needs, and that they can internalize the language to make it their own. So in summary here, we have quite a number of these principles. These are the ones that I have mentioned. And on top of these language principles, I would probably also add critical thinking skills, which is very underrepresented in our field. So having laid the groundwork for the principles and the things that we need to do as language teachers and language learners, let's move on to looking at how students are typically taught. Well, of course, the things we do is to do various activities, and these are various activities that we might do in the classroom. We may have a textbook, or maybe they learn from YouTube, maybe they read storybooks, maybe they do a dialogue, maybe they read a newspaper, maybe the teacher teaches something, they write an essay, students chat, and so on. So these are various activities that the students would do. So how do we categorize these activities? Well, we can break them into 2 large groups. One group would be language-focused learning activities, and the primary function here is to make sure that something is learned. It's a clear focus on a language point. So we're learning some vocabulary, we're learning a piece of grammar, we're learning how to pronounce something, we're learning a reading skill, and so on and so on. Language-focused learning. We need to also make sure that students are doing meaning-focused input and output. Meaning-focused is where they primarily focus on the message rather than the language itself. So this might involve, as I said before, reading or listening, writing an essay, and maybe chatting with your friends. So how are many students taught? Well, they're typically taught using a course book. And this is a very typical course book, maybe a book like yours. It won't look exactly like this, but it'll have many of these features. So what are some of these features? One of the main features is we have a relatively short text. There are some difficult words which the text is teaching, and maybe there's some definitions going to be given. Following this short reading, which is only 200 or 300 words, we would follow that up with some exercises, lots of different exercises on comprehension, on the grammar, on the vocabulary, and so on. And this is a very typical way that we would teach the language. And there's nothing wrong with this, of course. It's perfectly fine to be doing this. So if we look then at the structure of these course books, tells us something about our theory of language learning. If we look at the way that these things are designed, tells us what's important and how we structure learning. So I want us to spend a little bit of time now looking at this and seeing exactly what is happening when we are learning in this way. Well, the first thing to notice is if you look at the contents of any book, we're going to have vocabulary items and functions, structures, pronunciation, reading, listening, and so on and so on and so on. Now we have different units. Each unit is a different topic. Greetings. This is to do with different lives, I suspect, something to do with favorites, and maybe something to do with objects. Now, we've got different grammar that we're teaching, and we've got a very different vocabulary. So let's look at this a little bit in detail. Let's assume that we have a beginning level course for students, and this is day 1 of English. How are we typically going to be teaching our students? What do we as an industry typically do? Well, the first thing we do in unit 1 is probably we're going to be teaching the be verb. It's the most useful verb. The be verb and the past simple tense make up about 90% of verb uses. Clearly, they are the ones to focus on. We're going to be probably teaching some simple adjectives like I'm hot, she's cold, they're tired, and so on and so on. The second unit would maybe focus on something different, new grammar. We have the present simple tense and possibly some different vocabulary routines for the day. I get up at 7 o'clock, I clean my teeth, I go downstairs, I have my breakfast, I go to school. Unit 3 would focus on, for example, the present continuous tense and maybe sporting activities. Unit 4 may focus on can and can't and some abilities, things like I can't speak English, I can ride a horse, I can't da 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 da, and so on and so on. And you can see here that there's a certain structure, and there's a theory underlying this structure, an important theory of language learning that underlies this structure. What the structure says is that we will teach some new grammar. I will teach some new vocabulary, new grammar, new vocabulary, new grammar, new vocabulary, new. But these daily routines are very, very unlikely to come again in Unit 8 on a unit on technology. These sporting activities are very unlikely to come again in Unit 12 in a unit about health. So the basic theory here is we only need to teach something one time. We don't need to recycle it. We don't need to bring it back because learning happened when we taught it. The assumption here is that we only need to teach one time. It's therefore learnt. We don't need to recycle. And I call this one-hit learning. Now, as you know, and as I know, of course, students are not going to learn from meeting things only one time. They must meet them again and again and again and again and again. It's critical they do so. So what's going to happen with this learning? Well, as we saw from our forgetting curve, we know that this material is going to be forgotten over time if we don't meet it again. We know this. So if we have a structure where we're teaching primarily on new, and we don't recycle, we don't make sure the language comes back again, we are building in forgetting to our design. We are intentionally making sure that students forget. And that's absolutely the opposite of what we need. So imagine the student. Imagine we have a student who's taken your course, they've loved the class, they've loved the book, they got 10 out of 10 on every single lesson, every test they've done really, really well. They get to the end of the course, there's a test tomorrow, they open the book, they look back at unit 1 and go, huh? I don't remember this. Huh? I don't remember this. So how do they feel? Well, they was obviously going to say, well, it can't be the book. The book was great. Can't be my teacher. My teacher was excellent. There must be something wrong. The only way that they can rationalize this is by saying, it's me. There's something wrong with me. I'm a bad learner. I hate English. And this is a primary way that students become demotivated, because they learn and they try, but they forget. So we must fight the forgetting curve. So the problem with only using textbooks is that we often see reading and listening as testing. The passages are short, only 250 words in the by say 12 units in the book. That's only 3,000 words they're going to get of reading. The words are not met enough times to be learned forever. There are very few examples of the grammar patterns. The reading is slow and intensive and intentional. Everybody reads the same material, and it doesn't matter because they all have the same book. It's going to be easy for some students who are at the high level. It's going to be difficult for students at the bottom of the class. It's going to be interesting for some students, but not all the units are going to be interesting for everybody. So the problem here is that using only textbooks, we're going to only end up teaching in the middle. We're going to make sure there's lots and lots of forgetting. Now, please do not misunderstand. I love course books. My point here is that course books and this type of linear design where we go from new is not enough. We need something more. So if we go back to our principles and we look at how we're going to structure the learning, where do these things fit? Well, attention to form is clearly a language-focused learning activity. Building autonomy would be done from massive exposure to texts by being able to allow them to meet lots of texts that they want to meet and to learn independently. Time on task and massive practice must come from lots and lots of reading and listening. Checking understanding through tests and exercises is a form of language-focused learning. Quality language use that's non-contrived sentences that are motivating and engaging will come from natural real-world texts, where they can build connections, they can practice the skills of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. They can socialize the learning by meeting cultures and people and environments. They can discuss their reading, discuss their writing with other people, and build their fluency development. So that's how these things fit. If we see these things in a slightly different way, we have our principles down here, which we've just talked about. Now, the input activities would be the things we saw before. Teacher explanations, word lists, flashcards, intensive reading, exercises, grammar exercises, and our textbook. This is all language-focused input. Language-focused output would be things like gap fill exercises, sentence completion tests, exercises, tests, pronunciation drills, and so on. All of this is to check that learning happened here. This checks that this was learnt. Down the bottom here, meaning-focused input would include things like newspapers, websites, YouTube, movies, books, podcasts, radio, and so on. And meaning-focused output would include things like essays, diaries, speeches, presentations, discussion, debate, and so on. So these are the various activities and what they do. This is how we need to think about what we're doing. So now I have a question for you. Let's look at these activities here: newspapers, websites, YouTube, and so on. So if students meet Time magazine, or if they read the lyrics from a song, or if they are picking up a book from the bookstore, or if they're watching a movie, can they read and listen smoothly? Can you understand a native book without a dictionary? Can you read Time magazine without a dictionary? Do you know all the lyrics in the songs? Now, if you can't do that, or maybe you couldn't when you were a student, imagine how that's going to feel to students who are junior high school, middle high school, even university students. They certainly cannot understand this native level material, and for them, it's going to be a struggle. So let's look again at this. Are newspapers, websites, YouTube, movies, and so on, are they meaning-focused input? No, they're actually language-focused input. Why? Because they have to stop and look at their dictionary, they need to check, they need to reread things, and this becomes language-focused input. So we have a missing piece of the puzzle. What is it that needs to go into this section? What do we need to do to have meaning-focused input? What do we need? Well, we need to make sure that the input, the materials that we use, systematically control the input to fight the forgetting curve. It should not be random. It should come back in programs, systematic ways. We need to allow learners to read and listen at their own level so they can be independent and autonomous. The materials need to build receptive generative use through varied contexts so they can meet the words again in many contexts. We need to help them to develop fluency and build automaticity. We need to make sure they have massive time on task to build the connections and collocations. They need to meet millions and millions of words. We need to give them opportunities to raise awareness of discourse structure so they know the difference between a novel and an academic article, an email, and so on. We need to provide opportunities with these materials to internalize the language, to build a sense of language for the students. We also need to give freedom of choice so they can be independent learners, so they can study autonomously, and they have the right to be able to study at their pace in the way they want to, in the context that they choose. And we need to make sure that there's meaningful socialization of this language, where they can acculturate to new cultures and ideas, they can build their world knowledge, and that they can socialize personally by discussing their reading or their writing with other people. So all of these things need to be done by these materials. And what type of material is this? Fortunately, we do have materials. Unfortunately, these materials are rarely used. They're called graded readers. These books are storybooks, both fiction and non-fiction, written at various difficulty levels for students to read and listen to. There are about 5,000 different graded readers out there on the market by all the major publishers. So what do these graded readers do? Well, they have various levels. The very, very easiest level material has maybe only 1 or 2 sentences per page. Clearly, this is for young children, very, very beginners. The next level, maybe we have some dialogue, but again, short texts with an image. The next level will go up, which has slightly longer texts, smaller images, and we have now paragraphs. The next level up starts to introduce some more difficult words, more academic topics. And finally, at the advanced level, we would have text with, maybe more difficult words like, branches or path or clearing and so on, and no images. So we're trying to step students up. So these graded readers, their function is to scaffold learning, to build on previous knowledge. So learners start by books that are connected to phonics, and they end up reading native materials. So the students read, say, 20 or 30 phonics books, where they meet the phonics material again and again and again and again, so they become good at that. They then start to read graded readers, level 1 books. They read 20, 30 books at this level. They get fast, automatic at learning from these books. They then move up to the next level, which is a little bit more difficult, a bit more vocabulary, a bit more grammar, and they can practice this, read 20, 30 books at this level. When they're fluent at this level, they move up, they move up, they move up, they move up. And this is the same way that you learned as a child. When you were learning to read in your first language, you started with books with pictures, you started with books with very few words, and eventually you ended up to reading books without pictures, and you ended up reading native materials. We don't start here. We go through the process of systematically building on previous knowledge. Now, this information is not random input. We need to make sure that we continue with our course book, which will introduce the language and the grammar. The level 1 books will only have this grammar and vocabulary. This grammar and vocabulary is not in these books. We're trying to strengthen and deepen and recycle this language time and time again. When you're comfortable at this level, the students now move up to level 2. This now has this grammar and vocabulary, plus this grammar and vocabulary. Similarly, level 3 books do the same thing. So we're systematically building on previous knowledge. Now, I've just shown you a picture there of some books which are available in paper copy. Unfortunately, in Vietnam, these books are relatively hard to get hold of. And so online is another choice. There's a very good website called xreading.com, has about 1,500 graded readers available digitally. So if your school doesn't have money to build a library, then a digital solution, and this is not expensive. I think it's something around $10 per year per student, which is quite affordable, even in Vietnam. If you don't have money for that, then ER Central is another website. That's my own website that has reading and listening activities. It has tests, different levels. There's also a vocabulary component. There's a learner management system, so you can register your students, you can download and monitor whatever they've been reading, and there's a Vietnamese interface. And again, that's free. This afternoon, I'll be talking, beg your pardon, tomorrow morning, I'll be talking more about these websites. So we need to understand that there are different aims and different reading needs. We need to make sure that students are learning to read. And when we're learning to read something, it's very different from reading and listening to learn. When you're learning to read, we use textbooks, worksheets, and tests. Everything's done as a class. Everybody uses the same material. We focus on phonics and the alphabet and vocabulary. We focus on new words and grammar using our textbook, and so on and so on. So these are the things we do when we are learning to read. But when we're reading to learn and listening to learn, we use things like graded readers. The students choose their books. They focus on fluency and automaticity. We focus on comprehension, and we want to build natural reading speed. So we're focusing on 2 different types of reading. The first one we call study reading or intensive reading, and that's a great thing to do. But this is only the starting point. This is the same as going to driving school. When you go to driving school, you get a book with the rules of the road. You study in the driving school with a teacher next to you. Everything is controlled. But to be a good driver, you need to get on the road. You need to actually practice driving on the road in Vietnam. And we call this extensive reading. To learn to read properly, you need to read by reading. We learn to learn by doing that. We listen by listening. We read by reading. We speak. We learn to speak by speaking. We have to actually do the skill. And this is the missing piece of the puzzle. So how do you know if your students are doing intensive reading or extensive reading. So in your classroom, are we doing intensive reading or are we doing extensive reading? There's a very, very simple way to check. Look at the hand. If your students have a pen in their hand, they're probably doing study reading. If they have a book in their hand, they're doing extensive reading. So how much reading do students need to do? Well, each of these books has many thousands of words. As I said before, a typical course book may only have 20 or 30,000 words in it. This book has 3,000 or 4,000 words. This has 4,000 or 5,000 words. So if your students are reading 2 books a week, in 1 month, they read the same amount of material as the whole book that takes a year. 2 books a week is 12 times more than the textbook. So students at minimum, absolute minimum, need an hour a week at their ability level. Why do I say this? Because there's a balance between new input and forgetting. If they don't read enough, then too much forgetting is going to happen. At the intermediate level, again, a book a week at their level, but the books are thicker and longer, so they're actually reading more. But the problem comes when you get to the advanced level. At the advanced level, you already know so much language that you need to read more to find things that you don't know. Therefore, the amount of reading and listening has to increase. So at minimum, 2 to 3 hours a week at their ability. That's minimum before forgetting happens. So let me show how this works in a practical sense. If you look at the vocabulary in a course book, look at all the words in course books and put those into a computer and analyze them. And I did this some time ago. I took 5 books that is 3 years of learning for students in Mexico. There were 3,275 different word families in the 5 books. 523 words were met more than 50 times. They're clearly going to know these words at the end of 3 years. There are an additional 210 words met between 30 to 49 times, and 229 words met between 20 to 29 times. So it's about 900 words here are probably going to be known by the end of doing these 5 books. However, there's another 472 and 580 words that are probably partially known. They know something about it. They probably don't have strong control over it yet. They probably can't be used in their speaking, but they have some knowledge. So 900 words they know, 900 words are partly known. However, 40% of the words are forgotten because they are not met enough times. That's a huge waste of effort.
Sorry, Professor Rob, you have 2 more minutes and then we have 10 minutes for Q&A session. Yeah,
okay,
sorry.
I'll probably take maybe 5 minutes and it'll be 7 minutes of Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so now I asked the question, what will happen if we add graded reading to this? If they add reading, well, if they add 1 reader a week, you can see the numbers jump. Now, what's happening here is this vocabulary is now moving here. This vocabulary is now moving here because of the extra exposure. They're meeting more words. They are therefore deepening their vocabulary. If we add 2 books a week, what happens? Well, this vocabulary is moving here, and this vocabulary is moving here. And can you notice the difference between course book only vocabulary gains and course book plus reading? More than doubled their vocabulary from 2 hours a week. More than doubled their vocabulary in 2 hours a week. They read, the total amount here is 1 million words, and 1 million words is about the kind of language that you would need to get to, say, lower intermediate level. Okay, to get them to lower intermediate level, this amount of language will get them to that level. So the reasons we must do extensive reading is to provide massive fluent reading practice, to recycle important, useful words and grammar time and time again, to build long-term acquisition, not one-hit learning, long-term acquisition. We need to consolidate and strengthen the partly known language. We need to build reading speed, depth of knowledge, and it has to be enjoyable. So my question is, why is it that many people don't do this? And I think we need to look at what the average person in the streets theory about language would be. If you ask somebody to learn a new foreign language, what would they do? Take the person in the street, ask your mother, your sister, your brother. They would say, oh, we probably need to get some books or some CDs. We probably need to study some grammar. We probably need to study for a test, would be useful. Probably we need to study the language by getting some vocabulary for some books. Yeah, let me buy a dictionary. We need to have, we need to get books by native speakers. The aim is native speaker material. Let's buy some books by native speakers. And we need to learn by ourselves. This is the sort of default theory that many people have of language learning. And we see this reflected when we go to the bookstore. We have native materials, focus on tests, dictionaries and reference books, CDs, lots and lots of native materials and lots of grammar materials. And this is and also books that promise to build vocabulary quickly. This is what I call the bookstore theory of language learning. This is the default language learning theory that most of us carry around with us. The problem is that this is not accurate. It's not really taking into control and taking into account the missing piece of the puzzle. So this is my last set of slides. So you may say to me, fine, I get it. We need to study. We need to make sure our students are meeting the language. We need to make sure that the students get these words and meet this vocabulary. But sorry, Rob, nice idea, but I have no time in my course. We can't require extensive reading. My response is, where are you going to give them this massive exposure? Where are they going to get these millions of words? How else are they going to build a sense of language? How are they going to build autonomy? If you make it optional, guess what the students will do? They'll opt out. Why? Because they're busy. They've got other things to do. You say, oh, sorry, we can't do this. We have a fixed curriculum. The ministry's told us to do this. My head teacher's told. My advice, speak to your course designers to build in this reading. Reset and reallocate resources and reset class hours. You say, sorry, Rob, can't do it. We have to prepare for tests. TOEIC is important. TOEFL is important. SAT is important. Research suggests that students perform better on tests if they have a general sense of language and they can read faster. A major reason students don't do well on tests is they cannot read fast enough, so they end up guessing for the last few questions on the test. If you read faster, you read better. Lastly, people would say, look at these books, they look childish, they're too simple, they're too easy, they should be reading native materials. Easy is good, so that they can build reading speed, autonomy, and build those connections. Native materials are often too hard, so we have to be very, very careful. So if you want to learn more about extensive reading, please listen to the Extensive Reading podcast. The Extensive Reading Foundation has a guidebook which is written in Vietnamese for you to learn more. We also have a Facebook page for the Vietnamese English Extensive Reading Association. If you want to learn more, in Yogyakarta next year, we have the 6th World Congress on Extensive Reading. It will be around 1,000 people coming from all over the world only to talk about extensive reading. The website ER Central has a huge number of teachers' resources, and that's tell me I have to finish, number of resources here. So let me just stop that. And so this has a lot of resources for teachers. And I just want to go back to my main message today. My main message has been to make sure that we understand the principles of language learning. We understand the types of activities that we are doing and what they're trying to achieve. Very, very often, we are missing this piece of the puzzle. The missing piece of the puzzle needs to be there so that we can build all of these various skills. My question to you, are you doing this? Probably many of you are not. My aim today has not been to get you to do extensive reading tomorrow. That sounds strange. My aim has not been to get you to do extensive reading tomorrow. Why? Because it takes time. You have to maybe reorganize your course, get some money, build a library. But I have a very, very, very simple aim today. If you're not filling your courses with this missing piece of the puzzle, I hope I've achieved my task by making you feel guilty. Because now you know you should be doing this. And if you're not doing this, we are underserving our students. Thank you for your time today. If you want to learn more about extensive reading at 10:45 today, Tom Robb, who's the president of the Extensive Reading, chair of the Extensive Reading Foundation, will be talking. Libin this afternoon from Vinh University will be talking about extensive listening. I'll be talking about how to do extensive reading with no money and few resources. And Catherine Cheetham and Melody Elodie will be talking about extensive reading success. We now have time for about a few questions. Sorry, I'm a little bit late. So questions, please. If you have a question, please put them into the chat window.
Yeah, we've got some specific questions closely related to your sharing. So the very first question.
Yeah, actually, there are a number of questions and comments, among which, it seems a lot of appreciation for your presentation.
My pleasure.
And
my pleasure.
yeah, and I do think some comments they put it very early in the chat box, but for almost the end of your presentation, it answered a question regarding where we could find this kind of Reddit readers.
Speak with Fahasa. The Fahasa bookstore does have some of these books. I know Macmillan particularly are promoting books there. Fahasa doesn't really import the books enough. I've been to Vietnam many, many times, and one of my major tasks next time I come is to go to speak to Fahasa, get them to actually have the books. As I say, if you can't get them on in paper versions, digitally through xreading.com is a really, really good thing for you to get access to these materials. Some people are asking about the slides. I will share the slides for you now. So if you want the slides, I just need to send to everyone. So the slides are here. Please feel free to download them and do what you want with them. Any other questions, please?
Okay, so regarding the documents and the slides, you can actually upload it later on in the website of VietTESOL 2021.
Okay, that's fine.
Every participant can get access to downloading. The one question I think is very interesting in Vietnamese teaching context for young learners regarding how can we inspire young learners to do extensive reading, especially for large size classes.
That's a whole new talk. If you go to the Extensive Reading Foundation YouTube channel, you will see hundreds of videos about people who are answering questions exactly like that. We just held an Extensive Reading Around the World Congress with 1,000 people came, many from Vietnam. Go to the YouTube channel of the Extensive Reading Foundation. You'll see lots and lots and lots of presentations on extensive reading.
Thank you so much for your great presentations and the comments and questions. I think due to the limited time, we cannot include all the questions in the Q&A session. So if you have any further concern or question, you can get access to the website to get to bio Professor Rob Warren to email him for further details.
That's fine, yes. And also tomorrow I have a talk on how to do extensive reading. I will have a lot more time for questions then. Same time tomorrow.
And thank you so much, Peter. Professor Rob Warren. And
thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for that for your show off. And I do hope you had a very interesting and valuable and productive presentation with Professor Rob. And now I think it's exactly 9:30, it's time for us to move on to shift to another session that is feature session this morning. So we have 5 more minutes for transition. And then once again, thank you very much, Professor Roth, for the great presentation, and hope to get more valuable knowledge and presentation from the 2 more sessions ahead.
Yeah, sure. And I hope to see all of you again at Vin University soon.
Yeah, well, sure. Thank you so much. And goodbye, and see you in the future session.
Thank you very much to the participants for your kind attentions, and we wish you a very happy International Convention. Thank you, and now we move on with the parallel session. Goodbye and see you again.
Thank you, Rob.